You need to get a, stand like he's got, like I have, like Tony has. That's the best one.
I just took what they go from.
Oh, well, I mean,
You can make special requests.
I can?
really- Yeah, you really could, you know.
If we can afford it.
If we can afford it. We're on a tight budget.
We are on a
There's
tight
that
budget.
always.
Can we afford Android products for Android users? 'Cause I'm-
Right?
I'm
Right?
an Android. It's a
No.
whole new world for me.
You're 4 years in now.
I was gonna say,
I get lost from time to time. See, 'cause we have this thing called the home button on the Android phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it still gets.
It helps
like
us navigate.
There you go,
The
yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing.
My wife was an Android holdout for a long time. When she finally went to the dark side, she's like, gosh, this Apple's pretty good.
They have glitches with
Everything
Apple,
does.
but,
And my middle daughter, Clay Montana, she's never gone, she got the, how phone it is. You go for you.
better text Duckham.
Here?
You trying to break into 5, or?
Yeah. He's running late. He was watching the news this morning at 4 a.m. and fell back to sleep.
Well, years ago, we used to, 5 on the one end. Yeah. Yeah, see like this all the time. Back then, though, we didn't have the ability to, we didn't have the internet, the way we can do Zoom and all that stuff. We can record the meeting, and I'm like, hey, let's put us.
Sorry to cut you off. I think that's her request from the voters. Did we send them what they requested?
Flag up. What you want, what you want.
Remember that letter?
No? Good letter.
They're in the wrong places.
Do you?
Did she send me a letter?
Thought so. I got one. Just they want a notification of meetings.
Oh, she should be on the list, yeah. That's probably why she's here.
The U.S. flag code, the American flag belongs over there. And
Where?
I'm glad you know that,
the
Tony.
Michigan flag and the American flag got to switch.
Slide that one over.
Oh, we're on the wrong side?
Well, I have 4 minutes. Come on, computer. There we go.
Gotta come all the way over?
Yep, I'm all the way there. Go ahead, you guys.
We can.
There, now we're compliant with the U.S. flag.
Here, once you sit right over here, it doesn't have to be behind us either.
The Michigan one was. You don't want the American one?
No one in front of me, right, where I can see it. Now I have to turn my back on the public.
Sorry, you want
We'll be
off on
good to
the
go.
U.S. front?
Log in.
No, it's fine.
We don't.
No different than on the 5th floor.
We don't do this place in here anyway.
Yeah, no.
Hey, Earl, how are you?
Good. How'd the meeting go yesterday?
Yeah, Phil.
Uneventful?
Hey.
I couldn't see anything.
What?
Sure.
Yeah.
I just got on, so give me just a second.
You want me to say that?
They were not happy.
Okay.
You know, that was just a general feeling we got. You get a vibe like.
Okay, we're on 17th floor.
Yeah, I didn't wear a mask, sorry. Sorry, I'm not wearing one today.
Nope.
Tony, you're good to go.
Oh, I need to.
Everybody can log in now.
All right.
Hitting your button, come on. This dang thing doesn't respond to my finger. So it doesn't finger.
You gotta find one that's got the blood circulating in it.
Yes.
That, and you hit it like my mom. She pokes it, you gotta touch it. My mom pokes all the time,
Yeah.
I'm like, gotta touch it.
Mom thumps it.
Yeah, and my mom does that, and I'm like, that doesn't.
Once, it doesn't respond, I start jabbing it.
Yeah, my wife would be beating on it by now, so I understand what you're saying, but
Dang machine.
not the way.
I think I saw your, was it your folks I saw yesterday?
Yeah, they were down at the fair, yeah.
He's running late.
My,
Ding dong just calling.
mother-in-law was there, and my mom, and
Jeremy.
full house down there. They love the Elvis show. In fact, they swear that he's singing. I'm like, he's lip syncing. They're like, no, he's not. I'm gonna have to verify. I gotta check with Spark aging on it. Like, I'm pretty sure he's listening. Because the guitar is not moving, but I still keep hearing guitar music like he's playing.
Morning, Deborah.
Maybe the music, vocals are him, I'm like, whatever.
It's Tuesday morning.
They like, that was.
They liked it, they had a good time.
They had a
Doesn't
great
matter.
time, I didn't care.
Anybody heard from Jeremy?
I just texted him 7th floor.
You mentioned Delta was running late, too much stuff.
He's not coming, that's
He's
why
on
I'm sitting
vacation.
here.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know where he went, somewhere. Probably told me, I just don't remember.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair. Good morning, Commissioner Snell.
Chairman for this meeting.
Mr. Blackey, very good to see you. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a good summer. Next weekend, we're taking the grandkids to Mac City without a boat. We're gonna, sorry,
I know, it's like crushing my heart.
we gotta get a hotel room, you
Oh,
know,
no.
like, and then take the ferry across.
Oh,
We're gonna do
yeah.
pirate ship ferry.
You're doing truly the fudgy roll.
It's
route
really
there.
fudgy. Oh, yeah, fudgy big time.
Pirate ship.
Yeah,
They like
pirate
do,
ship's fun.
They do like costumes and everything?
Oh, this pirate ship.
Oh, yeah.
It's somebody cobbled together a pirate ship out of an old, you know, motorboat. And the big thing is, once they approach the island, they shoot off the cannon.
Mhm.
Oh, everybody just giggles at that.
Yeah.
And I got-
It's big and black, it's fun looking.
Yeah, it's kitschy, you know,
Yeah. Touristy and all that good stuff.
touristy, very touristy.
I found
We're
a
gonna
new
do
place.
a carriage tour on the island, you know, behind
Oh, yeah,
a horse's bottom and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The kids will probably laugh at that.
they'll like that, especially when he does.
Would you
what
guys
horses do.
like to give a couple minutes to the other commissioners, or would you like to begin?
You said they're on the way?
Yeah.
We can give them a couple house right
All right.
So what do we have up first? Audit, yeah.
I'll give them 3 minutes.
Well, that's what you give everybody to speak, I guess.
Yeah.
So are they working on the flag now?
Yeah, oh, yeah, they've got, I didn't realize how many wires, they got a pile of wires on the floor that they pulled out. I mean, it's a mound.
It's undone now. We're committed.
Oh, yeah, it is definitely undone. Yeah, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize there's that much wires. It's a clean split, they've kept adding on over the years.
All right, Jeremy's not coming, so it's just Phil.
I'll come out. But fair's been, 2 days I've been down for both the shows. Well, I usually go down early.
What does Phil end up doing?
Yeah, they had a good concert. I tell you what, Switchfoot they went for like an hour and a half last night. I left Collective Soul after about an hour. It was 10:30. I'm like, I'm going home. You know, it started at 7. I'm like, and I got there at 4.
You got your money's worth.
Oh, for that and then some. They were good too. I enjoyed it. Tonight's the big one. Tonight the place will be packed.
What's tonight?
Hank Williams.
Hank Williams.
Oh, my gosh.
Packed.
Big show.
It will be. He'll be the moneymaker because
We're good.
first two weren't.
Well, you know.
They bring a lot of people to the fair though.
I'm gonna go drive the
Cart?
cart at 10 a.m. this morning. So, Mr. Chair, we need, you know,
Be done
Oh, we
by
want to
then.
move it along?
well, I'm just saying, I guess I won't get fired from driving these things. I'd like to get there when I'm.
Fire a volunteer, yeah, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Don't get there in time, they'll cut your wage in half.
You'll owe them money.
I can,
Yeah.
that would be about right. That's right.
Their position.
Right, we're
Yeah.
gonna
Hey,
go.
we're zooming, I think,
Yep.
this,
Is it Zoom on?
No, but it can.
she says Phil is zooming.
No, he's not. She thought he's here, so we're gonna start. He'll be on his way.
I'll tell her, no, he's not.
All right, we will call the study session to order. Looking for a roll call attendance.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bear,
Present.
Commissioner Walls,
President.
Commissioner Duckham, Commissioner Polewski,
Here.
Commissioner Alexander, Commissioner Williams,
President.
Commissioner Snell,
Here.
Chairman Kennedy,
Present.
Chairman Shackwell. 6 present.
All right, we have a quorum. That takes us to our first opportunity for public comment. Is there any public comment?
Peter Bourne, 142 West Pearl Street. I wanted to congratulate the commissioners who won their primaries. Commissioner Bear, tough primary. Commissioner Kennedy, a little easier. Commissioner Alexander's not here. Congratulations to him. Commissioner Williams, congratulations to you. I'd like to thank the people who voted for me in that election. There was 232 of them, and I appreciate your votes. And I'm glad to see that someone is paying attention. I also want to say that the Jackson County Democratic Party sent out a late flyer, a big card, the kind you usually get in the governor's race or state senate race, for Darius Williams. So Derek Dobies is back there behind the Jackson County Democratic Party, and people should know that there's funds available for even local races that have never been there before. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any public comment? Last chance for public comment. Seeing none, public comment's closed. I'd be looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 12th, 2022. Moved by Snell, supported by Walls. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes unanimously. Takes us to item number 5, audit presentation from Mr. Balderman.
Morning.
Hello, sir.
Thank you for your time today. I will try to make this one of my three versions of this presentation. So today, just want to kind of focus on overall results of the audit. Won't dive into the financial information, but just want to kind of focus on some of the things that may be a little bit different in the reports from what they were in the previous year, and then give you kind of a summary of, from an audit perspective, of what the results of the audit were. So, also want to thank the county, all the staff, especially Cecilia, for all the work getting things done. Again, another smooth audit from our perspective, and things went well. So, this big report, 200 and some pages, it feels like it keeps on getting thicker, is the annual comprehensive financial report. This report pretty much is the same. We didn't have any new accounting standards that we issued this year. There were auditing standards changed, and I did want to point out, just because the audit opinion letter, the piece that's actually ours in that report, was reorganized, nothing major in terms of what we're doing, more about a presentation of what we're doing and how they did it. One of the nice things about it is they actually moved the opinion to the very beginning of the letter instead of it being in the middle of the letter. So that opinion, when you look at the report, is on page 13, but it's an unmodified opinion, or clean opinion, which is what you're hoping for when you get an audit. And honestly, if we don't do a clean opinion, the state of Michigan has all kinds of issues and makes us get to the point where we give a clean opinion. There's lots of other information. It does spell out some different things in different ways of how we're doing the reports. When you're getting the middle page 14, 15, lays it out a little bit differently, spells it out. I think a little bit easier to understand. But that's the major change there. In terms of the actual financial results, those types of things, how things are presented, nothing much changed there. The second document that you have is a separate letter. I did want to point something out because it's one of those where this letter is kind of a standard letter, has all the kind of standard communications that we have to make with those charged with governance. One of the things that changed under the new auditing standards was we are now required, as a part of our audit, to communicate with those charged with governance significant risk. And we say that, and sometimes it raises a flag. Oh, you guys think there's a risk in a certain area. Well, standards also dictate that there's certain things that we by default, have to say is a significant risk, identify and design procedures around. And those are the things, it's on page 2 of that letter, there's a section titled Significant Risk Identified. And this is pretty much any letter that you will see if this is the way that they're communicating things. It indicates that management override of internal control and revenue recognition were identified as significant risks. That by standards, we pretty much have to do, because anytime, we have to design procedures, we have to look at those things, because ultimately you have an set of internal controls in place, but if management somehow tries to override those controls, that's where you have a heightened risk of misstatement or fraud, and so those types of things, and then also revenue recognition has been identified by the AICPA as something that we have to look at. So nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that we specifically identified here where we said there was a significant risk that we needed to address. So just wanted to point that out. And then in that letter, the fact that there isn't anything in this letter is important. There could be an attachment A. Attachment A sometimes for us is a management letter comment, things that we feel needs to be addressed. There was nothing to include there, but in the attachment, there's a listing of all the new GASB standards that are out there, upcoming standards that haven't been implemented yet that might be. And there's actually been one since we put this letter out. We're all the way up to GASB 101. But the one that's going to have an effect for the next year is GASB 7 on leases. And there's a whole new standards under the GASB where you're going to have to look at all the leases on both sides, whether it's you have a lease where you're leasing out, for instance, space to someone else, or if you're leasing things like buildings, copiers, whatever, those all have to be analyzed, and there's a new standard that has to be implemented. So there will be changes in the statements most likely next year related to that. So that's the big new standard that we'll be looking at and meeting with management on over the next few months to try to make sure that gets implemented smoothly for next year. And then the last report that we have is a Single Audit Act compliance report. Because you have enough federal dollars, I mean, you're well over the threshold, we have to do what's called a single audit. And this year, the summary of that, a good summary I always like to point to people is page 13, because this kind of spells it out without having to read all the reports, exactly what's in there, what the results of the audit were. So there's a couple of different sections in it. The financial statement section talks about the results of our financial statement audit, so the audit of the annual comprehensive financial report. So talks about the audit report issued, as mentioned before, with an unmodified opinion. We're also required under standards to look at internal controls. If there are any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we identify during the audit, we're supposed to report those to those charged with governance. And in this report, happy to report that there was none this year. We also are required to report non-compliance overall on the financials, anything that would be material to the financial statements, non-compliance that was detected during the year, whether related to grants. And this is not just federal grants, any state grants, any laws, regulations, those types of things. We'd be required to report those, but happy to report there were none in that area as well. Then the last part of it, the bottom half of that page is the federal awards audit. So this year, the programs that we identified as major programs and tested this year, we had 3 of them. We had the WIC program, which is something that we test every so often, working through the rotation. And then this year, we had the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, which is your ARPA funds, and then an epidemiology grant. So both of those ended up meeting the threshold this year and were required to be tested. and we had no findings on either of those in the areas that we were required to test. So, you had unmodified opinions, we have to give an opinion on compliance, and we also have to report any control issues, but we had no matters to report. So, very clean audit, no findings, this year. So, it's really, in the end, what you're looking for in an audit for it to be clean. So, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Excuse me. Commissioner Pileski.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just, I think, a few observations, more than really questions, because the things that I look at are, these are the things I'm concerned with, and I want to say it's on page 82 of the audit report, is related to our funding of our existing pension plan. Was pleased to see that we're basically, that our assets exceed the expected liabilities of our pension plan by $45 million. And I think there's some bonds outstanding though too, right? Didn't we do some bonds a few years ago to fund that?
Correct.
So that's not unexpected, but it's nice to see because some units are underfunded with respect to their pension liabilities. So, and of course, now we've seen what the market has done this year. We'll see what the coming audit report will show. It won't be quite so rosy, it seems to me, next year. I think another thing that I was curious to know, we try to maintain a particular fund balance as a percentage of our revenues. I think in the notes to the financial statements, it was down at page 90-something, note 19, page 90 of your report. I see the general fund balance is about $10.8 million, and we're running roughly $50 million of revenue, I think, through general fund roughly. So we're about 20%, which is, I think, within our guidance of about 18 to 24% or something that we try to maintain as a fund balance. So those are kind of the touchstones that I look at when I'm looking at the audit report, because although I should understand better, I'm quite sure I do not understand any better than anyone else how that works. But I'm pleased to see those two things in nice shape, and the unmodified report and lack of points in the management letter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? I would ask, in your opinion, in reference to what Commissioner Pileski just brought up, would you consider our fund balance to be healthy and above average compared to other counties that you audit?
Yes, I mean, it's right within that range. I mean, I think your fund balance that's a very healthy limit. Having that 18 to 24% is definitely a very healthy position to be in. It's always, as an auditor, tough to say what's healthy and what's the right thing. That's your job as commissioners, is to set those levels, because there's both sides of that equation. There are lots of theories on too much fund balance, because if you have fund balance sitting out there that you're not, too much that's out there that you're not spending, that means you might not be providing services that need to be, those types of things. So it's a fine line to draw, but I think definitely that range that you have and where you set within that is very healthy.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Do we accept this board meeting? The board meeting?
Well, it just says comments and presentation here. Do we accept it?
We can put on.
Put on. That'll take us to item 6, ARPA funding and funding update.
Good morning.
Hello, Cecilia.
So this presentation is very high level. It's just more to kind of tell you what we've obligated, what we spent, where we're at, and what we need to do going forward. So on page 2, it talks about, I kind of show the dates that we received our ARPA funding. We have received the full $30 million that we are due. So those are the dates that we received them. And then on page 3 are our obligations. So as a reminder, there are different categories within this ARPA guidance. There's category A, B, C, and D. We pretty much have concentrated on category A, which was responding to the COVID-19 or the negative impact. And then category C was what is limited to our revenue loss. So category B was actually premium paid for employees, and we haven't utilized any of that, and there was also water, sewer infrastructure. And so again, category B and D, we have not obligated anything, but we have obligated, again, A and C. So, one thing I do want to point out, if you add up the amounts for the jail, for the HVAC, for the 1.1 million, and then in category C, 1.8, if you add those two together, that's your $3 million that you're wanting to obligate to the jail project. So that's how that's been split out.
Cecilia?
Yes.
Go ahead.
On page 3 here,
Yes.
category A,
Yes.
we got jail for HVAC at 1.185 million. Then in category 3, for government services, up to 10 million. Jail project, 1,814,000. I've been told all along that the ARPA money cannot be used for financing our jail project.
So the part that we can use, okay, back up a second. So category A is for HVAC. We can use that for the HVAC. And then the rest of it, we can use it for category C because we can use it for governmental services. We can use it for whatever we want to use it for. So we can do that. It's just I cannot go over $1,814,578. It's limited to that.
That limit is imposed by,
The $10 million. We can only spend up to $10 million of the gap, the category C. That's all I have
okay,
left.
so with the category C, we've already obligated $8,185,000.
Yes, and that's.
We've chosen to obligate $1,814,000.
To get us to 10
So that
million.
totals 10 million.
Yes.
Okay, so we are taking some 1.8 million of
That's the
ARPA
plan.
funds, and
That's
we
the
are gonna be
plan.
putting it towards the jail construction.
That's the plan, yes. Just kind of like we did with the animal shelter.
$3 million total, Tony.
3 million total for?
Yep. When you combine the HVAC with 1.8 is, I believe, lost revenue, correct? Yes.
And we chose the standard allowance, which is 10 million.
So $3 million total will be going towards the jail that voters won't have to.
Has the, category A obligated, got the IT projects, circuit court projects, and we've got the jail project. So these are, the IT project, circuit court, jail, are those obligated yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. Those, I set those aside knowing that they're going to come before you for your approval. So I didn't want to lose them in the whole list of things.
So overall, we will be taking 3 million of ARPA fund
Towards the jail.
towards jail. Now, the one earmarked for heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, is that in the new jail or is that in the old jail that's gonna get torn down?
Well, we'd have to see what happens first with the millage, I would assume, Tony, because if the millage doesn't pass,
Right.
so.
All right, so if we've got 3 million of ARPA money that we're anticipating spending on the jail, villages for 50 million? Is that 50 million still the correct number? Okay, because when I've heard how much money we need previously, we need 50 million. I heard no mention of 3 million already being.
I think the number was like 52, wasn't it, guys?
It was 54, I thought.
It was, yeah.
Well, that's the
And frankly-
construction dollars, that's the construction.
That's to construct the thing. There's no guarantees of, I mean, dare we say it, we've got, what, 18% in contingency total, I think it was. We hope that's enough to meet the construction cost increases, but we'll see. There's no guarantee.
So you're saying that this is a plan, this isn't history.
It's a plan right now. This is where we're at right now.
Okay, so we're anticipating putting 3 million into the jail.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Duckham, then we'll come to commissioners.
on the same line of thought process, and we have a category D, infrastructure.
That's water and sewer.
That's water and sewer and broadband. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna need that out there.
No, what I've read with water and sewer, those are like existing infrastructures that have been neglected over the years, and the intent is to use ARPA funding to upgrade them.
Okay,
So it's not for new construction.
then parking lot is not infrastructure?
No, that would not fall under that, no, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Snell.
Yeah, we need to have a start number, and that's why we did 1 mil. If we put in the 3 million, which I expect that we will, and it comes in under budget, nothing says we have to levy the full mill.
You levy up to.
Levy less, we can always levy up to, so say it comes out to be 0.95, we levy 1 year. You know, we can do things like that. Like any millage that we levy, we just adjust down.
too?
It would be rare for a government.
It would.
Well, we could do that.
I would hope a lot of citizens are keeping track of this, because they will want to know.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, was that all, Commissioner Snell? Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Commissioner Pileski?
I was just thinking, I mean, if in very round numbers, if we're talking about a 20-year millage, that, at $5 million a year ballpark, it's gonna raise roughly $100 million over the 20-year period, of which 52 million's for construction, there's gonna be some for operations, because of interest costs, and there's operation costs, which is all part of the calculation you guys have done. But this is the contribution of ARPA toward offsetting, to some extent, the public's charge for the millage of doing the whole project, which I'm glad to see, which I heard in my township meetings, hey, what about this ARPA money? Can't we use some of that? I'm glad to see us doing this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Williams, thank you.
Thank you. So my question, is in the event that we've started this project, and we're finding that it's going to cost us a little bit more, than we're anticipating, would we have the opportunity to use any additional ARPA dollars, or are the rest allocated already?
Okay, so the $10 million is already allocated, and that's when we can be, there's a little bit more flexibility, we can use it how we want. The category A, we don't know how much the HVAC's gonna cost. We don't know. That was that was my plug number from the 3 million that I was asked to account for, right? So in the HVAC, it could be more. It could maybe it's 2.5 million. And we could use more category A money to pay for an HVAC. We just gotta be clear on the cost of the HVAC in the system.
Okay. So in category A, my last question, in category A, how many dollars can we spend? You said up to 10 million, correct?
No, category C is 10 million.
Category C, okay.
C, yeah.
Okay.
And we're done with that. That's gone. You'll never hear us come back and ask for more money for category C.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Duckham.
Once again, I'd like to present the idea that we don't have a price yet to construct this facility. We have an 18% cushion built in. And I see in one of our next categories here, subjects, we're going to talk about, we expected one price and it came in 35% more. Okay, the extra 17% comes to about $8 million extra. I am not comfortable. I said it before when we went with the 1 mil. I'm not comfortable. We're gonna hit our budget. What are we gonna do if we need an extra $8 million? We should have got the constructed price before we went with the projected constructed price, because again and again, we're seeing.
I don't think anybody would give us one.
Pardon me?
I don't think anyone would give us a construction price from 6 months in the future.
I don't either. I think that with not knowing the lay of the land, I mean, once we get these bids in and we sign the bids, we're locked in for that, depending on cost overruns that we can negotiate.
Okay.
I think we gotta start somewhere, and the first thing is to see if the public will support this project or not.
I just have a feeling this will come back and bite us, and I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I can lay block if I have to.
Okay. Put that in the record.
All right, so we're gonna come back to Center and let her finish her report. I'd ask you to hold the rest of your questions till the end of her report, please, Commissioners.
Okay, all right, page 4. So, as of today, or let's put it this way, the date that I did this report, these are the expenditures that we've, that's actually been paid on the different projects, between A and C, pretty straightforward. Then if you go to page 5, this is what our summary, of what we've received, our obligations, and then the remaining ARPA funding. So we have $9.7 million right now that's available, that hasn't been either accounted for or that hasn't been obligated. So we have until December 31st, 2024 to make those decisions and to obligate it. And then we have till December 31st, 2026 to pay it. If it's not paid, we're going to have to pay it back, or the same thing is not obligated. It's pretty much not, if we don't obligate it by 2024, we're going to have to pay the funds back, and we don't want that. So, so there's some decisions that need to be made. I know the HVACs is, eventually we're gonna come to board, and that will fall under category A. I can't remember what the number is, maybe it's like $2 million or something, maybe 3, that I know that would fall under category A. That as a committee, internally, we'll need to make some decisions, and, you know, come before you, and this is what we're thinking. But category A is very, very picky, because there's a lot of strings attached. It has to be related to COVID, the COVID pandemic and responding to it, and that type of thing. But we will make those decisions and come back and.
I just add on to that, we are struggling to figure out how that money is gonna be
Yeah.
applicable. There's so many strings to it. It's like, geez, do we qualify? Do we meet that? We do have 2 years to do it, but.
And I do scrutinize everything, so you know. I am called a scrutinizer, so.
She's good at her job.
Commissioner?
Well, we've been worried about that since the first day.
Yeah.
I mean, about whatever we spend. it
Exactly.
qualifies.
We have. It changed how many times, you know?
Yeah.
We tried very, very hard. That, you know, the category C, that revenue loss number, it was a lot harder to calculate it using the formula than I thought. So that's an example of a change that happened. And so, does anyone have any questions? Any
Questions?
additional questions?
Commissioner Williams and then Commissioner Snow.
Thank you. So if I heard you correctly, you're saying that this $9.7 million are restricted dollars?
Yes, they're all gonna be category A now.
Okay, you ready to answer my next question? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Snow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, and I hate to, keep talking about the same thing, but I know Earl is interested in this, and I'm interested in this, and the rest of the board is, what is our plan for that other $9.7 million? Where does it have to be spent? You know, and I just, so that we can make these decisions.
Yeah, that's right.
And have we determined that the rest of that money absolutely cannot be used for jail?
No, unless, again, as I mentioned before, that HVAC, if it's over that 1.8 million, yes, we can, whatever, so we've done the category C, that, we're done with that, we have allocated that amount to the construction. We have monies that we can allocate for the HVAC portion of the construction, and that's it. So right now, I have a plug in there of 1.8 to get to us to the 3. So if it's above and beyond whatever that number was, I think it was 1.8. But if it's above and beyond that number, at 1.1, then we can use it for the HVAC.
Okay.
If we can find any additional things in the construction of the jail that will meet category A, we will be bringing that forward. Thus far, the strings attached do not look conducive to that.
Yeah, and I know we can't set these numbers for the jail till we see what the people vote for, and then get the bids out and see what they look like. And I'm not necessarily, you know, I also think we need to look at the fact that whatever we spend on the jail can't be spent on the repair of these buildings that we've kind of pushed maintenance off for years and years and years. may make sense just to go ahead and spend those monies for these projects. But I want to see what those projects are.
But we still do, I just talked to Region Two yesterday. Yesterday. They're progressing on the white paper coming for the rest of the buildings. In fact, they've got a couple of buildings already knocked out, and a couple more to go, but you'll have that soon.
And I certainly recognize the fact that they spent a lot of time on the jail.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? That'll take us to item B. Oh, sorry, I thought you were doing that. Thank you for your report. Yep. Takes us to item B, Facilities Use Center Rooftop HVAC Unit Replacement ARPA Project, INF-22.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm going to have Derek Isley present this one. Morning.
Hi, Derek.
I'm here to set forth a motion to put forward the approval for the replacement of the rooftop heating and cooling unit at the youth center under ARPA project INF-22. The youth center cooling system replacements using low-bid Force Mechanical, Jackson, at $20,500.
Any questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Bear?
This is, ARPA money, project identified earlier, INF-22. Is this a Category A or a Category C project?
Great question. It's an A.
It's an easy question.
It's a what? A? Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Williams?
No question, but just a comment. I just wanted to appreciate the fact that we're using a local company. So this is a big question of mine. I look at every request that comes through to where it's coming from, so I'm just glad to see that. Thank you.
And the Category A is under the financial and under analysis.
Commissioner Snell?
Yeah, I find it amazing that we've been able to, get 30 years of life out of that equipment. So facilities has done a great job, but I would also suggest we probably have put more into that in parts and repairs than should have been done. Typically, your life is between 15 and 20 years on this stuff, and I'm just amazed that it lasted this long.
There's been
the use it gets out of it.
There's been more than once that Rick and his folks have had to put water hoses on different pieces of equipment during the summer just to meet the demand because the machine was so outdated and we didn't have the money to replace it. So we're thankful that these dollars are available to take care of these HVAC needs, you know.
All right, this isn't an action item, gentlemen, so this will come through committee and to the full board. And thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. Takes us to item 7, budget update, finance. She's back in action.
There she is.
Good morning. So all of you guys should have received my draft budget, right? You guys have received all of those? Okay. So whenever we do this budget update, we're mostly focusing on the general fund. And as you can think, you know, if you kind of think about, well, where we've had problems in the past is when our general fund hasn't balanced, that's when we're cutting millions of dollars, right? So we kind of focus on the general fund. I start this budget process in April. I kind of know pretty early on whether or not we're gonna have a problem. And we kind of, of course, we bring it up to, you know, bring it to you as here's where we're at, real early on and start making plans. But you know, for this year, I didn't foresee any problems. We are balanced in our general fund, which is good. So there's been a few things that I've kind of tweaked since the presentation, but I didn't want to re-upload the presentation. I thought I'd just kind of talk on it. Hopefully I'm free to do that and add things as we go along. That's okay. All right, so on page 2, we do have a significant increase to our property tax revenue. As everyone's aware, you know, our inflation rate is high, it's way above 5%. And as you know, we are limited to an increase in our property taxes of the 5% or inflation. So in this case, we're gonna be above a 5%. We've gone ahead, we've increased our property tax revenue to $1.2 million for this year. Any questions on that? It is a big number, just so you know. I worry every year about it, but I feel comfortable this year, just because if we're off, then it just causes all kinds of problems. But we've been good so far, so. Yes, question?
Commissioner Pulaski.
Yeah, thank you. So, the 5% increase is on taxable value for properties that do not change hands or not subject to a,
Yeah.
uncapping, okay? But it's potentially, our revenue increase could be greater than
Yes.
5%.
And I
But
don't-
other properties,
I'm sorry.
that change hands, their taxable value is uncapped, and their taxable value increases quite a bit, because it's higher than the, previous taxable value. But what we're using here is 5%, realizing that we might have a little more, you're being conservative with 5%.
I am being very conservative. That's revenues, I am very conservative on. I want my revenue budget to be pretty much lesser than I think. You know, sometimes just because we don't have problems, but you are right, because we're gonna run into that problem this year too.
If I may clarify just a little bit there, just for the benefit of the board and those in attendance. Proposal A in Headley, it's individual properties, not the aggregate. So while the inflation might be 9%, it's not a 9% across the board for all these homes. Each individual house is looked at. So while some neighborhoods, we will get the maximum, which is 5%, because those houses all appreciated more than the 5%. Some places, they may not. If it's a 3%, that house went up 3%, we only get to 3. We can't take them to the 5. We only get to 3. And as Commissioner Pulaski indicated there, any house that was sold, well, it goes up to the full amount of whatever the market is at that time. Sometimes they equal out, sometimes they do not. Literally, if we don't have a lot of sales, those properties that are below the 5% threshold drag us down. And then the other thing I would remind everyone too is, this is every year. So every year, our revenue generally does not keep pace with inflation. I mean, if inflation's 3%, you know, we don't get the 3%, we get something less, because a house may have only appreciated for 1%. And while at the same time, all our costs, generally, fuel, things like that we buy, utilities and the like, go up with inflation. So it's every year, and when they first did Proposal A back in '94, you know, everyone thought, well, it's just a little increase, a little loss every year. It is a little loss every year, but '94 was a long time ago. Those little losses have added up to significant. The county every year receives a little over $4 million less than it would have if Proposal A was never done. I'm not against Proposal A. I just want to point out the fact that we are operating with $4 million less than we would have operated otherwise because of that loss.
Okay, I believe some commissioners had some questions, but I don't remember. Okay, commissioners now?
Yeah, and to follow up with what Commissioner Pulaski said, being in real estate, I'm seeing the market slow down. I'm seeing actual price drops on property out there for sale rather than people overbidding. Now we're seeing underbidding. As you may remember back in the, I don't know, was that 10 or 11, when the legislature came in and said, you're gonna cut these assessments because these homes aren't worth what they're assessed at. And I think we should be very conservative in our estimations of what's gonna happen, because I don't think we're gonna get to that point where we were in 2008, 2009, because there's a different set of circumstances going on. But it's something to keep an eye on.
Commissioner Duckham.
As I see this, yeah, we have significant budget increases in revenue. But we also know we have very significant inflation. So we're really going backwards again.
Every year.
Yes. So it looks like it's a great thing here. It's gonna help, but we're still getting hurt.
Every year.
Thank you.
All right, so on page 3, we start talking about expenses. And again, I'm only talking about significant things that are affecting the budget. We do have even though our union contracts, not all of them have been signed, we went ahead and gone ahead and we do have a wage increase, including the step increases of $500,000 into the general fund. I do have an estimate that whenever in total, countywide, including JDOT, the total increase is about $1.1 million. So that's kind of where we're at with the wages and step increases. Any questions on that?
Commissioner Pulaski.
So I wanna make sure I understand, when we talk about the $500,000 increase here, this is as to general fund, it's not taking into account the JCDOT, that's under active, that's another deal.
Totally different thing, but
Okay.
in total, countywide, we're looking at $1.1 million.
Gotcha.
In total.
Okay, thank you.
This is just the general fund portion. I have a little sticky note just for information purposes. Our benefits, we've been told right now, our insurance, we're looking at a minimum, well, there's a big story about insurance, but what I've been told to include is 20% increase in insurance. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? No, they weren't. So, but let's be honest though, it's not a surprise, okay? Last year we had a net increase of 3%, and the year before I think it may have been 5%. So, I do, have taken a couple of years knowing that this is probably gonna happen, which now where we're at, taking some of our, they're called forfeitures. And what that means is, we have employer matches on our DC plans and also on our retirement health savings plans. And employees have to be here for a certain amount of time, like maybe 4 or 5 years, in order for them to receive that full match. What we've been seeing over the past couple of years, especially since 2020, there's been a huge turnover of employees. And so the forfeitures have been growing. So what I've been doing the past couple of years is kind of throwing them into our health fund to have extra, to build up that fund balance. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, it's high, it's very high, but I think by the time this year is done, we close this year, we know how many employees are actually taking the health insurance. I'm going to be able to use some of those forfeiture dollars, maybe $200,000 of it, to help lower this cost that we're seeing hitting this, countywide. So I just want to kind of share that. There is a little bit of a plan that we're kind of working on to help with that. Any questions on that? Okay, and I was going to also tell you, so including JCDOT, and again, this is an estimate. We're not done. It's just an estimate. So including JCDOT, we're looking at over about $2 million countywide increase in health. This is health insurance, employee health insurance, and retiree health insurance.
Commissioner Pulaski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry to be verbose today.
I appreciate your rebusteness.
Verbosity, yes.
There you go.
Not to be extra verbose. So the way I'm looking at the presentation, we got about a $1.3 million projected property tax increase, and then we're looking at, on the next page, here's probably how we're going to how that's going to be spent. I'm seeing $500,000 in wage increases, general fund, and $1.1 million in increased health care, maybe offset by a reduced employer retirement plan contribution. And basically, that speaks really for the property tax increase over and above whatever we had originally planned in this budget.
It does. It's more.
Yeah, well, it's more. Okay.
It's, again, a little bit of loss every year.
Yeah, so am I reading that, am I reading the presentation properly that way? Okay. That's, I wanted to just make sure I'm kind of...
I'll have some interjections in a second, too. And then the other thing, which is a positive, we did have a decrease in our retirement employer contributions, DB and DC. So with our DB plan, we actually, in total decrease for the plan, and this is just the county, it doesn't include JCDOT. JCDOT has a different amount, but the decrease was over $306,000 because the markets have been so good. So now, in total, the total decrease is $398,500. That now I'm looking at from budget to budget, okay? So our DB reduction is a little bit higher than the and that has, a lot of it has to do with the allocation between one year and another year, okay? But, so that was a positive. We did have some savings in our DB plan. Our DC, we have a reduction just because of turnover. People, I saw this a lot comparing one year to the other year. We had retirement, and that happened this, in '22. And then we also have people leaving, people coming in a lower step, therefore our DC contribution's lower. You know, things like that. I can't take one budget and compare it to the other. They're not apples and apples, you know, because the employee mix is a little bit different. But at the end of the day, this is where we're at with that. Any questions on that?
Commissioner Bear.
Thank you. On a few categories here, you've listed, you know, there's this cost, but then when you add JC dot into it, the cost is different. And that different amount isn't in print here. So why have we chosen to separate JC dot out some of these categories?
Okay, JC dot has a totally different accounting software that I have, so I have to do it that way. And also, the other thing too is we're only looking at general funds right here. I'm just giving you information countywide. JC dot actually, that's why, is because their accounting system is totally different. They pay their own bills, you know, and then but that's fine. I'm just trying to give you information.
But obviously, they do influence these numbers.
Countywide, they do. Yeah, and they did have a reduction too. JC dot did in their employer contribution for 23. I just don't have it written down right now. I think it's like half. I don't remember.
Okay, even if they've got a different accounting system, I guess my preference should be to see the total numbers.
Yeah. And we can do that going forward.
This is a general fund.
It is, right.
We have a whole lot of other funds.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it a simple, high level for you, just because there's a lot that I could get into, with detail. But I'm
Hundreds
just more
of
letting you
pages.
know that it's a positive in the sense that our DB plan, in overall countywide, between 22 and 23, the employer contribution's gone down, and we have some savings.
Okay.
All right, on page 4, I do have a couple of departments that I do want to point out where we did have some increase in costs. Emergency management, it's only $11,000, but for this department, it is significant, because he doesn't have a lot. And it is new. And this is a 1-year contract for the county staff identification system. And in the past, they had the Homeland Security grant paid for this, but the Homeland Security grant, has declined over the last 3 years. So emergency management, meaning us, the county, has picked up $9,000 of a $20,000 cost. Actually, no, we picked up $11,000, the city's picking up $9,000, or a total of $20,000. So this is something new that I wanted to bring to the board.
Thank you.
Okay. And then the next one is the medical examiners. I have some information, we can get in a little bit more detail for them, because they have seen an increase in cases of like over 31.6% of ME cases in their office, and it actually started back in, they sent me a table here, let me find it. Sorry. Back in 2021. So I went back, and I did have budget amendments for 2021. I'm going to have budget amendments for 2022 also for the increases in their cases. But for 2020, they had total ME cases of 482. For 2021, they jump up to 700. And then for 21, then 22, as of 12/31, they're already at 398. And just asking her why their cases have increased, their biggest reason has to do with people aren't going to the doctor, and then also the doctors are not wanting to sign off on the death certificate. So, and it's, and her point is too that, you know, it's not their choice to send the ME exam, it's all based on the state, so.
If the doctor doesn't sign off on it, FYI,
Yeah.
he has to go to the medical examiner.
Exactly,
He would have to
they're seeing a
sign
lot
it.
of that.
And that would add to our caseload.
Yeah,
Why is
Yeah.
that? What's changed?
The doctors don't want to sign off on it.
yeah,
It's a good question.
yeah.
That's the doctors.
So I just wanted to share that is why there's an increase in their cases and why we're increasing
They're not
the
really
cost to
dead.
cover that.
They're not sure if they're not absolutely sure they're dead?
They're not sure why they, what
I'm not sure why they're dead.
what it comes down to is they're not
Cause of
sure
death.
why they're the cause of death. We're signing off on the death certificate to the cause of death. And, you know, we can theorize. I have my own thoughts on that and COVID and everything else, but, that's just, the fact is, they are not signing off on them, therefore they have to go to the ME's office. He has to do it.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Right. So we're trying to adjust the budget to where it's more reasonable as to what they're seeing, so I'm not having to do budget amendments during the year. I have one thing I wanted to bring up. There was a question on what operational supplies was for the ME, so here you go. Saws, body bags.
I know.
Gowns, so those are operational costs, things that
Money
they
out.
have to do in order to run a morgue. So, so that's what that is, so,
Those are expensive sauce too, huh?
yeah, they are,
I bet they are.
yeah. So any,
Go to Lowe's and buy.
so I list those increases over the next 2 pages. Is there any questions on those increases? It's just more to get their budget more in line to what they're seeing. Okay. And then, page 6, we can go ahead and jump over to capital. So we are continuing transfers in from the health department and also for other funds that have fund balance available to us. And so the extra fund balance that we are receiving from the health department is helping us pay for our capital.
Let me jump in on that just briefly, just for the board's understanding. When the general fund is the overall fund that provides funds for all these other funds, you know. Government accounting, and gotta love it. And, so when we send them a check to $100,000 check to, say, a health department or some other department, and they only use 80,000 of it that year, well, that 20,000 stays in that fund. Over time, that fund will start to accumulate money, and so we will kind of draw it back out, and that's what she's referring to.
Right.
It's not like we're stealing their money, no, it's money we gave them that we're just drawing back out.
Right, and then for the health department, this is related COVID money too, that they, you know, that they had received, and they didn't need it necessarily for their operations, for example. So that is funding our capital right now, so I just want to make that open for everybody. It's not extra general fund money we have in order to fund this capital, it is money that we are receiving from other funds in order to do that.
Our capital fund monies, supply of funds, money for capital funds is gone. Remember the delinquent tax property? That's kind of gone. Our Raphael case put that, to kibosh for that. So we will be struggling, one more struggle, and that is capital now. We didn't have that problem in the past, but we do now.
And that's also whenever I'm doing budget amendments and it looks like we're gonna be, have enough fund balance, for example, that's what I did last year. We were good with our fund balance, I put money, that increased our fund balance actually, but any other times, like for this year, if we have extra money, I'll throw it over into the capital fund, just to start building it up and have it available, especially for emergencies. We have some money from that way. So, go ahead. Yes.
Commissioner West, I'm sorry to beat a wounded horse here. But with respect to general fund, we've just dedicated a couple $100,000 to the Leone Road project, and we're about to talk about $1.1 million for Blackman Township match, and that's GF money, right?
Yeah, and so, the Blackman Leone money, if I may speak, we did receive some SRI money, the partial litigation for 2022 that we could use towards that, so it wouldn't hit our fund balance. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So I just want to share that. I don't want to hit our fund balance, but if we need to, it's yours.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to that item.
Right, but I'm just more,
We're talking about budget amendments.
I know.
That's a big
Well,
budget thing.
This is just a budget presentation, not amendment.
This is a budget, and so right now, that, Commissioner Plesky, what I do have that SR money in right now is capital. So that, the money that I was talking about, SRI. So if as a board, you decide we need to go forward with the Blackman Leone, I'll just do a simple adjustment and move it from capital over to transfer to JCDOT. So the money is there, cash-wise, for 2022 in order to do that project. It's just whether or not, what you need to do. I'll move on. I'm just more sharing.
Commissioner Williams.
I love this
I
job.
think Commissioner Plesser and I are thinking the same, so I'll hold my question for now.
Thank you, sir. All right, carry on.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions on the capital that are listed at all?
Commissioner
I
Barrett.
do have, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Facilities, 90,000 for 2 new GMC
I
3/4 ton trucks.
I have information for you.
Hopefully they're, not a lot of extra, options included in that. I mean, I don't think they need to have heated seats like some trucks have. Special trim packages. I hope they're more of a basic model.
For $45,000, I don't think you're getting many options.
You know,
Bare bone minimum.
I was gonna
it's
say.
just bare bone minimum. And I do have some just information as to why they're needed. The 2 oldest trucks are 2002, 2004. They have ongoing issues with motor, transmission, brakes, lots of rust with floorboards falling out with multiple mechanical issues. And then the current skid steer is a 2000 and has ongoing mechanical issues with lots of rust due to high salt usage. So it sounds like they're,
Thank you.
So,
Explanation.
so while we're on that topic, although they're obviously depleted assets, what do we do with those, used vehicles? Do we auction them?
We auction them off.
And that money would go back into the general fund?
Yes.
it would go back into the equipment
Capital.
fund.
Excuse me.
Yes,
All
we're
right.
gonna put back into equipment so we can use it.
Okay, thank you.
Because this is money transferred out from the general over to capital. All right, anything else?
In GIS, we set aside money because every 4 to 5 years we fly over at a cost, great cost.
One thing that is new that I wanted to bring up is I think it's important, if we can, we should, I hope your board approves, the information technology, the $150,000 towards future technology replacement. Because right now, we have the ARPA funding that has been paying for this. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to go ahead and put money aside for, once those contracts are over, we'll have money available to replace again, so. This is for planning purposes.
Commissioner Barrett.
So you're taking $150,000 of general fund budget, and you're just kind of putting that off into a separate account for future technology
Yes.
replacements?
Yeah, so we're not scrambling and stressed out whenever we can't replace something.
So we're taxing the citizens this year for technology that'll be some future year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're setting aside money,
We're trying to be.
Sinking fund.
We're trying to be planning, be able to be planful and not reactive, whenever we have emergencies. And we can have the money available to whenever we need to replace whatever that word that Michelle uses to explain technology.
Well, I've got a further question on that then. Where's my numbers? I've got it here. I gotta find the right document. Be the last document in this file. Yeah, anyway, I don't have the right number at my fingertips, but, we told our prosecuting attorney who requested $400,000 for what I thought was needed personnel. And he was told, sorry, we don't have the money for that. Now we're taking the money, we're setting it aside in a different account for some future expenditure. I would rather see this money spent right now, providing the prosecutor with the staff he needs. So when we've got the prosecutor's office, the drain commissioner's office, that have got requests in for funding, instead of telling them, no, we can't find the money, it makes no sense to me to put $150,000 off in some separate savings account. There's a need
My response to
now,
that would be,
spend it now.
if the board agrees with you, that's what we'll do. If they do not, we will not.
Just keep in mind, as I had mentioned too, this is being funded with a transfer, extra COVID money available, fund balance from the health department that will eventually dry up. So once that money dries up, then our capital is going to dry up. So if we go ahead and budget for the prosecutor's office, then we're gonna have a problem later because that money won't be there. I mean, if you think future-wise, does that make sense? No?
Well, anything that you don't pay for now, you can say that that money won't be there in the future. Well, do you have a future need or have a current need?
Okay, Commissioner Snell.
I'd like to thank you for thinking ahead.
Thank you.
One of my things that I've wondered here and talked about is we keep kicking cans down the road. We need to find a way to stop that. One of those ways we do it. You know, in business, failure to plan is planning to fail. We need to think about our needs down the road, not just this year. Technology's here, but that's going to be expensive. There's going to be big expenses on that. We've $150,000, I hate to say it's nothing, but that'll fund one attorney. So it's
1 year.
I guess
I'm happy with this plan.
Yeah, I don't want things to be an emergency. I want it to be more of an inconvenience than an emergency, if that makes sense, so.
And that was pretty much the end as I look at the next page, correct, or?
Ray, if you don't think $150,000 is a lot of money, owe it to somebody.
I'm paying off my house.
Well, Cecilia, thank you very much for your work, your explanations today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to item 8. Oh, excuse me. Yes.
Yes.
You're lagging.
Sorry.
Item 8, Lagoon Plan, Cascades Park presentation. Hello, Angela.
Good morning. Okay, it's not on, so we don't have to stand in front of it. All right.
You can move around the room if you need to.
Oh, I can dance. All right, so we have our iPad, so she can see her presentation. I'm going to let Amelia give the presentation. We did it in June to the Parks Board. So we'll summarize where we are and our next steps, and I think have a little bit of discussion possibly. Thank you all for being here today. I know you have to be here, but thank you. So this morning, like Angie mentioned, I'm going to try and just reiterate what was presented at the Parks Board in June, since you are all aware of what was said there, and then what brought us here today, and what motions are going forward, the plan that we have at this point, and then the progress that we have made. So, we presented to the Parks Board in June 3 different options as we saw after the conclusion of our Phase 1 study of the Cascades Park. We saw, moving forward, that we could remove the plate that has been a hot topic around the area. Simple, do that, lower the water level elevation, cut and dry. Option 2 would be to remove that plate and then dredge the entire water course. So we're talking that upwards lagoons and then the golf course stream path. And then 3 would just be to dredge the top lagoons. So the motion was made at the Parks Board to follow that option 2. That would be to remove the plate and then dredge the entire water course. That was recommended to the Board of Commissioners for consideration and to involve all related agencies, Summit Township, Eagle, the City of Jackson, so on and such forth. So in this consideration, we looked at the pros and cons of these 3 different options, that be cost, timelines, effects on the environment, how well they address the original issue that was brought to us by the residents, and then any possible outcomes that could come from that. So that was where we were recommending a Phase 2 study to understand how lowering surface water elevation could impact the residents nearby and the park as a whole. We have some concerns about lowering that water level and that creating void space underneath the residents. Talking to consultants and continuing conversation. They haven't expressed an explicit worry of that, but it's something we want to be cognizant of. And then in addition, there are known areas of contamination from previous gas stations, leaking underground storage tanks. We want to make sure that we're not possibly going to be pulling those contaminants to the residents. But like I've mentioned, the consultants that we have talked to at this point have not expressed as much of a worry as we would have anticipated. So that's comforting for us, them being the experts in us trying to do our due diligence. So that phase 2 study, we had the phase 1 study that for lack of clarity, we will say that we've kind of tied that up at this point. We're still working on collecting data, making sure that what we have seen this last year is still representative of what we are seeing, that there isn't some sort of anomaly that we've missed or that we are including in all of this. So we're continuing with that, but for our data, that's what we've been looking at is this last year. We have to do a wetlands delineation for our permitting discussions with EGLE. We want to make sure that in any of these situations where we are impacting waters of the state or the wetlands, that we understand the potential area of impact so that we know how to mitigate for it or to consider it in our considerations as far as options and possible solutions. Then for anything with dredging, we have to do sediment testing. We need to make sure that for that depth of material that we want to remove, that we're not bringing up any contaminants from that bottom, unsettling them and causing more problems downstream that could be a health and safety hazard. And then that phase 2 study that I just mentioned, going through that, making sure that we're not going to be causing problems down the line. And then finally, dredging, which is going to be a pretty big price point. We've heard different ranges on that, depending on what we hope the scope of dredging to be, anywhere between $3.8 to $8 million. So it's not a small price tag, but could possibly offer a comprehensive solution. I should pause at this moment. I'm hoping that you all have access to the presentation on the Word doc. Okay, just making sure. Okay, so I'm looking at the cost page at this point, just running through that. With those 3 different options, there's different requirements. We're talking about just removing the plate. We're going to still be impacting that wetland, but we won't necessarily be dredging and don't need the sediment testing that's related to that. With that option 2 being that larger, plate removal and dredging, all those requirements will be needed to make sure that we check all the boxes and we're not doing anything negligent and causing issues for the environment or for the public. And then option 3 being just dredging those top lagoons. The amount of sediment testing would likely be less because we're not looking at as much of an area. However, there's still a heavy price tag with that just because of dredging and a lot of uncertainty that's attached to that at this point, not having a firm number of what dredging costs would be, but that is pending that sediment testing that we have to do. Once we do that sediment testing, we'll be able to understand the method of disposal that's required. If there's contaminants, we have to be more cognizant of how that's treated, making sure that we're not disposing of any hazardous material on site that could seep into the park. So we want to make sure that we're being safe with that. And then if we are just doing that top lagoon, that phase 2 study, we won't necessarily be looking at lowering the water levels, so we're not as concerned about causing any deleterious impacts to those residents nearby or possibly flowing over those contaminants. But like I've mentioned to this point, we haven't heard a resounding concern from experts that we have talked to, but it's still something that we are pursuing to make sure that we are doing what's best for the community and for the park. Okay, so on that next slide of things to consider, I've run through a lot of it already, but just to reiterate, that phase 2 study, we want to make sure that we're doing our best for the park and the residents. Sediment testing, the cost of that will help us determine the disposal method, and then we have a better idea at this point of what is required for sediment testing. When I mentioned the cost on the previous cost slide, that actually has been over estimate of what we have received for a quote for sediment testing. We have received a quote from SME for just over $30,000. So previously, when we had thought that $60,000 was our low point, hearing half of that was a bit of a celebration, at least for me, for you all. So as we continue to talk with SMU, that price has continued to go down. So and then looking at considering between option 2 and option 3, whether to dredge the entire watercourse or just the top lagoons, keeping in mind that dredging those top lagoons do make up about 3/4 of the overall proposed dredging. So either way, it's still a hefty amount of dredging that has to be done. So at this point, we have already completed the wetlands delineation with Tri-Terra. That was for $11,300. And then the sediment testing has gone out to bid. We received one bid back from SME for that, just over that $30,000 number that you see there. We are still in conversations with those consultants for that phase 2 analysis. We've received various ranges as far as proposed cost for that or potential cost for that, and we're trying to narrow in on where there's that discrepancy and what they would require as scientists, as experts, to consider to give us a level of confidence in knowing that we can move forward with this, or if there's other things that we need to be cognizant of in proposing to lower the water elevation. And then we're continuing to have discussions with people all this while. They are probably tired of me at this point, very familiar with my email address, but that's okay. So we're in their busy season right now, which has put some stalling, not stalling, let's slow down the process as far as conversations with them, but we're making sure that we're meeting their requirements. We've gotten different parties to go involved so that we get a comprehensive idea of what they're looking for to make sure that we're meeting all those checks for the health and safety of the people in the park. And then there's a beautiful picture on that last slide, I hope you enjoy it.
So the pending approval of the 30,840, that's pending this board's approval?
Committee.
Committee.
Yeah.
Okay,
Committee.
thank you.
Just to remind everyone, we were given the $1 million, which had $100,000 set aside for engineering, so the numbers that you see for soil testing and for wetland delineation are coming out of that $100,000.
Okay. Administrator Overton.
Just for the benefit of this group here, where are we getting the 4 or 8 million? Everyone keeps looking at me going, hey, where's that money coming from? And I'm like, oh.
So very early in this, in the consideration, as we've been working through that phase 1 study, we started reaching out to dredging consultants. Surprise, surprise, and mostly at the coast. Who would have thought? But trying to get their best understanding of what a project like this would mean for dredging. And because we don't know what the bottom contaminants of the, or if there are contaminants at that bottom sediment of the lagoons, it's hard to understand what they would need to do as far as the way they treat the sediment, how they dispose of it, because ultimately, that mobilization of that sediment, that disposal, trucking it off, that's gonna be a hefty cost. So they're trying their best to kind of narrow in on that, but now having complete information.
Potentially, we can dispose of it on site and add another sledding hill or something, but we don't know that until that testing's done.
Now, if there's mercury in the hill, right?
Correct, yes. Yeah, no. If there's something bad in it, we're not letting it seep back into the water.
Right.
So, I have to go through its own disposal things.
Commissioner Williams.
So, well, thank you for doing this. I have several questions, but I'll just be brief and just kind of hit some of the bigger target ones. So, in terms of the price for dredging, in my conversations with the Drain Commissioner and a few other individuals, they were thinking that the price would be much lower than this. I mean, between maybe $1 to $2 million. So now we're looking at anywhere between 4 and 8. Is that inflation or what's the cost?
So to be completely transparent, I'm not wholly positive where the 1 to 2 million specifically came from. Even back as far as 2010, earlier than that, we were looking at anywhere from 2.5 to 5.2 million.
Oh, okay.
So it's
What was that? You said 2.1?
2.5 to 5.2. At least that's based on the documentation that was documentation for grants that were requested from various entities of government. So that's me just compiling those receipts, trying to understand really what this looks like in the last 40 years.
Because the plans for the dredging were actually drawn up in 2010, and we Jack Ripson did them, and we've actually got consulting prices, because it's cheaper to have him just update them for the submittal this go-around versus having them redrawn.
Okay.
So we're using the plans that they did in 2010 that were the 2.5 to 5.5 million cost estimates. So I don't know where the 1 to 2 million.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So in the event that, we continue with this project, and if there is a possibility, after we pull the blades and dredge, again, changing the water levels, if you will, I just want to make sure I'm just articulating this correctly, so if I'm wrong, please help me. So that would then possibly cause, a different soil runoff and things, and creating the houses to be a little more imbalanced. In the event that that may be a possibility, do we need to have the homeowners in the area, do we need to do like a special mail and say, hey, these are the possibilities, just so that they know? I'm just trying to think of ways that, you know, we're protecting ourselves as a county, so we're not potentially walking into like a lawsuit or anything like that. So is that something that we need to do, or?
I would think if that's the result of the phase two, that yes, we would have to consult an attorney and figure out documents to drop with landowners. Mike, I don't know. Do you agree?
Yeah, we don't like to surprise people.
Sure.
But, you know, this is, I'm still on how to pay for this. I can tell you the county does not have the money. This will be a drainage project, be very likely, which would involve the drain commissioner, of course, and he would have to create a board of determination. That's 3 people he selects that are not part of the drainage project. And then those 3 people would evaluate all the data that we are gathering now, make a determination as to whether there should be a project or not. And if they declare a special assessment, and it goes forward from there, of which we would be a part of, and any other property owner in that area would be a part of. And there's always, you know, the public hearings in the process for special assessments, that would all be part of that, and notification requirements.
We don't pay taxes on our part.
No, we would pay a special assessment. We do pay special assessment costs, absolutely. We pay a number of them now, drains as well as road projects the city has done that are in front of our property and things like that, so yeah.
It comes from general fund then, or?
It, yes. General fund's generally where it is. You know, everything else, think of all of our funds, guys, the general fund, when I say general, is because you can use it for a lot of different things. The other funds are very restrictive. We can't take money from, you know, the animal shelter's millage and use it for anything but animal shelter. So everything comes from general fund if it's not part of a defined millage.
And then my last question for you, and then I'll email the rest of them out, is I think you talked a little bit about possibility of what could happen downstream. So if we pull this lake, the water's got to go somewhere. So have we done more homework in regards to what that would possibly look like as we work towards downstream?
We've been looking into it. Ultimately, we've been tying that in with our phase 2 analysis to get a better understanding of that. A lot of that's going to be dictated by the golf course infrastructure that's there, whether it's culverts, bridges, what have you, dams. So those are going to be dependent on that. Each downstream structure is going to control what's upstream of it. Just want to make for the sake of magnitude, though, in removing the plate, we are talking about 6 to 7 inches of water. So it's not nothing.
It's not a complete just pull it all the way out.
It would do gradual.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's holding back 6 to 7 inches of water right now, from one side to the other. So it's not 3 feet that we're proposing. Now, if the discussion is made that we want to lower everything 3 feet through dredging, through modifying the infrastructure, that's a different conversation. Happy to be part of it. But at this point, it is just that 6 to 7 inches that we're talking about. So it's not, we're not talking a tsunami.
If I may jump in there, the engineers can't say it, but I will as a non-engineer. I've looked at it too, and you know, think of the lagoons. It's a big pond. It's not a lake by any means, and we're talking about pulling the plate up and letting water run down into what is otherwise a ditch/creek at some point. We can control the flow. It won't be a problem, I don't believe, downstream at all.
Okay.
And Eagle will have say in that. So
Okay.
I was part of a similar project in Marshall, and they regulated how many inches in the time frame you had to let it run with that, you know, an inch lowering. So it'll be a time frame that they let us draw down.
Okay.
And then the other part is, let's check. Eagle.
Welcome to my
Oh,
world.
in 2010, the plans that were drawn up, Eagle dictated removal of structures in the golf course too. So they'll also look at your concerns as far as what structures need to be upsized or removed. I believe there was removal of a couple, only leaving two in place. So that'll all be ironed out as we work through the process with Eagle if we move forward.
One more question, and I'm gonna be done. At what point, in this phase do we begin to remove it?
That's something that ECO has to.
They have to decide that.
Yeah, so it's part of the permitting.
Okay.
So that's where the wetlands delineation and, they've recommended us doing everything as one permit as opposed to doing two permits, so that's also, dependent on the sediment testing as well. So we can couple that all together and get that sent to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know a little bit about leaking underground storage tanks. And if we've got contamination from that that's gone into the lagoon, and we find that or other manufacturing contaminants in there, will we still be able to dredge, and then what will the increase in cost be for that? Because if we've got contamination to dispose of that, that's not cheap.
Yes, you can dredge, it's just the method then typically it has to go into a special filter sack before it can be taken off site and it's disposed of at a landfill that's authorized to take the material. So we can dredge, the cost, unit price is that. Unit price I don't know, and that's where the contractors consultants were giving us their best guess, at $8 million.
Okay, so that would put us at the top of the range.
Yes, that's what that's all considered.
And then, you know, I'm fairly new to the board. I don't know why, all the reasons we're looking to do this, but what are the major reasons that we're looking to do this?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry that you've missed my 40 slide-long PowerPoints. I know the board really enjoys them, but this was originally brought to us because there were reports of residential basement issues on the east side of Cascades Park. They're seeing high water levels seeping into their basements. It was reported that 11 different residents were having that issue. Over time, we've had regular contact with 3 of them, just through taking circumstance meetings, what have you. So in trying to address why groundwater was high in the area, we were trying to understand the part that the park water features played in that, and the surface water elevation of the lagoons to see if one was driving the other. If it was the park features that were raising groundwater levels enough that were causing problems, or if the lagoon level was staying high enough that it was flooding out the residents. So we were trying just to understand what factors were playing a part into the water issues they were seeing.
And I think we've looked at some other mitigating factors there, like how they're disposing of their own waters off their roofs, and some draining issues that may have been caused by the city.
The city has drainage structures that go into the lagoons. And the roof drains, I believe, have been tied into the system now, the ones that we were concerned about. They were not tied into just one. But yes, those were factors that were analyzed in this process.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bear.
Minor item on your chart here, you got the remove plate, pros and cons. Under dredge in your first one, improve the lagoon's ecosystem. You could add that comment to the remove plate and dredge.
What I was referring to in that pro or con was how well the water body would be able to circulate. So in removing the plate, we'd be lowering the water level and we'd possibly be choking it, sort of at that outlet point. It wouldn't to the same depth, so it wouldn't have that same depth to circulate. So, but to that point, I guess it depends on how we envision the ecosystem. Because we could say that marshlands also improving the ecosystem, bird habitat improving the ecosystem. You're right, it is a matter of perspective.
All right. The removal of the plate, that's just going to be a gross adjustment of 7 inches in the water level, and that's all you get. At the Parks Board meeting, I brought up an idea, it got support. I don't think it was in the motion, but instead of just yanking the plate out, dropping the water 7 inches, replace it with an adjustable plate. Then if you want to go down 1 inch only, you can adjust it. If you want to go down 3 inches, you can adjust it. And if you take it all the way down to 7, then you realize that was too much. Well, with the adjustable plate, you can bring it back up to 5. But at this point in the discussion, that's a tiny cost factor. But I think the project would be well served with an adjustable plate instead of just remove it. And that's all you got.
And we have that in our notes for discussion with PECO, because they'll dictate whether that can happen, what the variations, when those variations can happen, that type of thing. So we'll talk with them.
All right, so you haven't lost track of that?
Nope.
Page titled, Things to Consider. If we drop the water level in the lagoons, currently the groundwater table through a large region of the county there is kind of at a static condition. There's been some discussion if we lower the water table in the lagoons, how is that going to affect the polluted site from the gas station and all the pollutants that's in the groundwater there? If we lower the groundwater at the lagoons, is that contaminated plume going to start flowing towards? Have we done any studies? Do we know about how this will impact the polluted site?
That is the main concern of the phase 2 analysis.
The main concern of...
The phase 2 analysis that we're proposing.
Okay.
That's what we've been talking to consultants to try and understand, because as we've seen it with our data, there appears to be a groundwater divide under Southwest Ave that is holding the contamination site in its place. And so our concern is that if we do jump it enough, will we be shifting things enough to the west that it will pull the contaminants towards the lagoons and the residents? So that's something that we're talking to consultants about to do that study on, so we have a better understanding of what that is.
All right, so that's still in your consideration?
And we got 2 responses. We're waiting on a third. Once Mike resigned, we went to try to find another team member to look at that for us. It's just the 2 that we have range extremely from like 6,000 to 44,000. So it's such a big difference in price that we're trying to talk with them and understand what one's seeing, the other's not, that type of thing, to make sure that if we go with the 6,000, we're going to still feel comfortable that we're getting the answers we need. So SME is the third one we're waiting for. Their person that does that was on vacation, so they're working on that. And we're hoping we have it this week so that we can slide it in maybe at committee next week, yeah. For you guys to consider with because the material testing will be there also.
Okay, thank you.
All set. Commissioner, do you have all your questions?
That was it.
Okay. Commissioner Duckham.
I'd like to preface my statement that I'm not completely stupid. I try to be practical. Okay, it seemed to me like a wise investor would buy these 10 houses or 11 houses, move the people out that's having problems, fill the basements in, and turn around and resell them. It wouldn't cost you but about $1 million to do that, instead of, we're looking at 4 to 9, 4 to 8.
Mr. Overton.
I would just, I agree with you, frankly, about that. What I would tell you is that what we're doing is not for those properties. We make no claim that this will solve their problems with basement water. What we're doing is, this has opened up a larger can, if you will, and with the lagoons and the golf course and runoff and all that sort of thing. It was only a matter of time, 10 years ago, they had been looking at dredging. They had got a permit from Eagle, I think, to dredge, but the money wasn't there to do it, so they didn't do it. We're back to that, if you will, for evaluating the lagoons, dredging, and dealing with the golf course issue all the way across. There's an overall much larger problem than that problem. We could do that, and that, from my perspective, if that really were the solution for those property owners, that's a city should be doing that, because those are they're in the city limits. That should be the city. That should be the city stepping up and taking helping their residents right there do that. We as a county are looking at the much larger issue. We have a huge asset park golf course there that is not what it used to be, is the way I'm told. And it's going to continue to sediment, load, fill in, and next thing you know, there won't be a lagoon there. It'll just be a wetland, I believe, is really what it comes down to. Or greenfield, which is what it was before the Cascades was ever constructed. That was not a pond.
Right.
It was just wet.
Mr. Shotwell played football, right?
He did. And it's just trying to return to what it once was, is the way it's explained to me. And if we wanted to remain a viable lagoon where you could literally paddleboard or something on it, or fish, open water, if you will, we're going to have to do something. That's what this is about.
Then I come back to the problem that we don't have the money.
Yeah,
And I'm getting the feeling from the public with the jail millage and the 911 and a couple other projects, they're not so much, I don't know if they're willing or not willing, I don't think they have the money to pay any more increases. And I won't vote for more funding to get both from the general public.
I know we'll continue to reach out to the state. They have, as was indicated, Mike Shirkey was good with that $1 million. That's what's funding the work we're doing now. We're hopefully there'll be some additional dollars to help us manage this project. But again, there's no guarantees, and that's something ultimately the board will have to decide upon, what, if anything, we're going to do. But we will make that decision based on scientific data and appropriate engineering study, so you guys can make an informed, educated decision one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. I take that back, I am stupid.
Duly noted, Mr. Douglas.
We'll strike that from the record.
Got it.
Thank you for the presentation, and, well, I'm sure we're gonna be hearing a lot more going forward.
We will, yeah, that kind of money, we'll hear a lot.
And then we're moving on to item 9, which is the Jackson County Department of Transportation County Farm Spring Corridor Improvement Project and Jackson Technology Park North.
All right, so I'm gonna take this one. Debbie was going to be here, and she okayed me to let you guys know. She tested positive for COVID and can't be here, so I'm gonna slide by the seat of my pants.
COVID excuse again, oh man, COVID's everywhere.
I know, so she would do a much better job, but pleading for money. So we put the project out. Well, first I should introduce Charlie. Charlie Briner, you guys might not have met. He has been hiding behind the scenes, but now he is a PE and is one of our senior civils. When Joe Benschneider left our agency, Charlie picked up this project and has been running with it. And
Congratulations, Charlie.
I'm very grateful for him. So, he did the final plans, submitted them, and it went out to bid, and unfortunately, like everything else in our life, came in over budget, 33%. I have the bid tab, I can answer any questions. Charlie's here to answer questions, but the bottom line is, you'll see the memo that Debbie wrote up that kind of outlines how much Blackman's put into it, the process we went through, how the EDA, the property purchase, all of that. But comes down to that just over $1 million, that's needed to proceed with the project that is for County Farm Road, parts of the project. I know a lot of people say, well, JCDOT should be able to fund that. Unfortunately, it's not in our budget. We did not budget a line item, and we don't have the money to be able to move forward. So, Pete Zancic with Blackman, and Debbie and Tim from the EDA, or Enterprise Group, sorry, too many acronyms. We met with Mike and kind of talked about it, and this was the only thing we saw as a project team that we could come to you guys asking if there's any way to consider funding that just over $1 million dollars for the project.
So, my question is probably more
Go
to
ahead.
Mike.
Surprise.
Should we choose to do this, the money, I would assume, would come from reserves then. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yes, it's money that's not budgeted. As Cecilia alluded to earlier, the obvious is general fund. We're fully funded in general fund, and we could fund this. It'll reduce our percentage, obviously, but, the other option she alluded to was the SRI fund. As you know, we have more, just recently settled with those townships who owed us over $1 million. And so we have that $1 million set aside that we could use for this. Just real quick for the benefit, for outline the options really, it's overbid if we choose to do nothing and no one else has any money to do something. What would happen is they would probably go back, change the plans to try to reduce the cost, meaning take out whatever they got to take out of the project, sidewalks, I don't know, gutters, something, and then go back to the EDA to see if they will continue to fund the project based on the change, and then resubmit. That'll take some months to do. Then resubmit in the spring back out to bid for construction. And of course, in the conversation, some of the concern was, one, would the EDA give us the $6 million that they've already promised if we change the project? No guarantees there. And there is, we believe, a guarantee that inflation will continue and that we may very well be paying close to what we're paying now for less in the spring. Because this project is slated to start September? No? Yes? Well, let's lock in the bid was
Yes, we need
September
to lock in
1.
the bid. We gave them until Memorial Day to get the technology part developed, the groundwork,
Okay.
and the road base done.
Okay.
And then the end of the year to have everything else.
And so the question is, we really don't believe that it's really a good idea to delay the project and try to reduce the scope of the project to save some money. So we're thinking that, somewhere the money, needs to come from. And you can see from Blackman's perspective, I've spoke to Pete, of course, about this, as well as some other Blackman representation. And their position is they put in, the county hasn't put in any. They are actually paying for our JDOT engineers to design the project. It's not on our dime. They are paying for that. Blackman Township is paying that. It's in Blackman Township.
Well, to be fair, yes, captured millage funds from the county have paid that, correct?
Well, it's more than just the county's captured money, but yes.
Well, it's an LDFA.
No.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's just one more tax capturing
The
entity.
match funds is from their water and sewer. So
They're putting in
LDFA pays
water and sewer
a
funds
big
there.
portion of it, yeah.
But,
Holy crap.
they've got millions, they got over $3 million into it, right?
Yeah.
And the EDA is $6 million, and they're looking at us for $1 million, a little over $1 million,
So-
1.1.
Overall, I think this would be good for Jackson County, and it would create tax base, so through time,
Jobs
the
and
county
money.
would, and jobs for the community, but also from a fiscal standpoint, in the long run, the county would recoup this money, a very long.
In the long run,
Yeah.
yes. Well, here's the thing about economic development. Frequently, government all across the nation gives away the farm to get somebody to build.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the promise is that they're gonna add jobs, those people are gonna buy houses or build houses and so forth and so on, and add to the vibrancy of our community. That's where we get our money.
I totally
I know you
understand that.
know.
So, my question is, simply put, has anybody examined what the Blackman LDFA has in their bank account, before we expend county funds? I'd like to know, are they sitting on a lot of money? Because this is their project. To be fair, it's not a county project. It's their project. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but I would like to know the financial situation involved, because if they're sitting on money, it should be expended.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner
Before you
Snow.
answer that question, I'd like to, make sure we understand, this is not necessarily a Blackman Township project. This is the Jackson Technology Park. This is gonna benefit all of Jackson.
I agree.
It's not the Blackman Technology Park, it's the Jackson Technology Park. I know that there's several companies ready to move in right now. And if we can't make this ready to go, they're gonna leave the community. They're gonna be gone. We're gonna lose those jobs, we're gonna lose that tax base. So I think it behooves us to really look at this, and funding doesn't have to happen this year. And we could agree to it over a certain amount of years, a couple of years maybe, to set that up. What Blackman's looking is for certainty that there'll be funding available to get this project done.
Commissioner Pulaski.
And I agree, I don't think anybody disagrees with the value of the project. The issue is that it's unplanned and it's county general fund dollars, and that's a problem from my perspective. Is there a way for us to lend this money to someone, the LDFA or whoever, and be repaid in future for the monies we would be expected to spend now? Because LDFAs are tax captures, okay? They're taking some of, frankly, ours and other tax organizations' dollars. If we can fund it and then get paid back, is there any way to do that?
I have to look closer at that with an attorney. I can tell you, last we talked about the county's ability to loan money. It was made very clear to us legally that we are not a bank. We cannot loan money. Is there some exception with this kind of project? I'm not sure. We can make inquiry into that.
I guess what I'm saying is, have it be some way that we can get the work done that we're saying needs to get done without it being a complete drain on our general fund dollars.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's the question.
Along with, I would like to know what that LDFA has in their funds.
So, all I know for that is they are picking up the overage, the 1.4. 1.4, and they're talking about taking a loan for that.
Okay.
I do not believe they have money to fund.
I appreciate that, thank you.
But we will have the definitive answer by our committee. I'm sure Pete or somebody could tell us. He'll probably be there.
I saw someone's hand, I'm sorry.
I
There
believe
it is.
it's Commissioner Bear or something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tell me this, just so I can be clear. As we know, this is a county road, right? Okay, so JCDOT has a responsibility to fix the county roads as they have the budget to do that. And so if I remember correctly, when we discussed roads some time ago, essentially the JCDOT builds a timeline based off of dollars available, et cetera. So why can't we just do that with this?
So the improvements that are happening for this is because of the expansion for the development. So typically, if a developer came in, we'd require them to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to maintain our system. It's from the feasibility study that was done a few years ago that we partnered with Blackman on. For them to develop this park, you have to have that signal there. You have to have the added turn lanes to handle the capacity of that development. So it's nothing that JCDOT would fund. Road resurfacing portions, we would do, but that's not on this project. This is all added capacity because of a development. The only thing JCDOT could do is potentially go after grants, where most of it's covered, and we pay the match funds for that. But there's no promise to that. There's not a history of accidents out there, to be able to get safety grants to improve the intersection. So we could go after that. There's just no promise to when, or how much.
Sure. Well, any dollar amount would help. And I guess my last question, so I guess my last question would be, if we have potential developers that are looking to move into this area, what dollar amount would they be paying?
You mean for this
project?
project?
Yeah.
They wouldn't.
You mentioned, okay, maybe I'm not understanding.
They can't. So the whole point of getting this grant was to make it a site-ready development. So, when they.
So we don't have individuals that are currently looking to move into the area?
They have potential buyers, but they can't pass this cost on to them.
That's the incentive to these companies.
Sounds like a Lenawee County.
So,
It's no different than home development. I mean, you build a subdivision, the developer pays for the cost for the subdivision.
Darius was finishing his point before you started
Are you done?
your conversation. Let Darius finish.
no, I appreciate that, Tony, but I think I am.
I thought you were.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Now I don't remember my point, so.
So I guess I'm just struggling with, and maybe this gets back to the point, I'm struggling with funding this, because I understand we want to make it beautiful, just for lack of a better term, so that individuals move in, but I was under the impression that when we have individuals that are going to move into the area, that they have a certain responsibility to pay a certain amount of dollars to help beautify it, so to speak. So in this case, I guess I'm struggling in why we're not asking for those potential dollars, or is it that they have not confirmed that they're moving to the area?
It's tied to the grant that we got, that we wrote, the almost $5.9 million that we're getting from the EDA is a grant that is to develop this site so that buyers can just come in and build. So the grant is doing what you're talking about. Yes, typically in an industrial park, I think that's how it's done.
Okay.
But we went after this grant to prevent them from having to do it, to make it more of a lot to move in there.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this, but I'll hold it.
I would tell you that this is not unusual. This is normal from a industrial park type development situation. You build it and then you sell your parcels off to the companies that come in. That's what they do. And sometimes they give them away because they're looking at the long-term greater good in the community for jobs. And as I think as Commissioner Snell pointed out, there are some companies in our county that made it very clear they need to expand. They're expanding somewhere. They're expanding here, or they're going to expand in some other place where they do have the property and the infrastructure ready to support their needs. Is that simple?
Did any other commissioners have questions? Because I did have one. Okay. I'm going to let Rodney go. The man hasn't got to ask a question all day.
I noticed the scope of your work here, for JDOT to get into, is it basically the roadways?
Road.
For JDOT to, why are we involved? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So it started with Blackman, Enterprise Group, and the county wrote the grant. JCDOT, because we have an engineering team, are the consultants on it. We wouldn't be involved if we weren't doing the engineering.
I believe we had to write the grant.
The county general.
Yes.
But as far as the $1 million part, what is that gonna do?
That covers the overage for construction. So the one thing I didn't point out, which was surprising to us, it's not HMA. This is, the reason it's over is really dirt work.
Dirt work and material.
And then the pipes and things for, the sanitary utilities. But, yeah, so it's to build the infrastructure for it. The HMA, was within a couple dollars on one of the mixes and $5 on another. So the items that we know, we estimated pretty good on.
What I was wondering is if we could delay our portion a little bit, let the rest of the project go on, and if we come in and did driveways and roads and things like that, wait toward the tail end of the project so that, or maybe even after some buildings, and come back and do it later.
So I wanted to
just
hit on
kind of
that.
delay it.
Commissioner Snell talked about that too. So the key to this is we can't delay. We have to do what is in the scope of the grant, period. Everything that we wrote in there, the signal being installed, the storm sewer, the development of the sidewalk, everything that was wrote in there has to be done for them to give us the $6 million. And it has to be a commitment now. You can't delay it for a couple of years. As the project progresses with construction, we have to do the progress payments. JCDOT will have to, and then we have to be reimbursed by the grant or Blackman for the match, or in this situation, if the county is doing the overage, then for the construction cost of that, we'll bill immediately to get it back into our bank account.
Okay. Commissioner Walz, are you okay with you? Yep. Commissioner Bear.
Thank you. I'm disappointed in some of the stuff I'm hearing. The money that the county received from the SRI settlement just got squirreled away in some secret account somewhere, and that we can now go access that money? Why was that not put into the general fund? And how do we receive $1 million from SRI settlements that the money just is not acknowledged? It's just hidden over here, and, oh, here's a project, okay, now we can spend it. How does that happen?
I don't think that's the case. We just received it, first of all, through court, and then, not court, but they ended up settling, and Leone just paid it, not long ago. I think they paid a second installment, haven't they, or no? No.
Leone paid it all.
Leone paid it.
What are the payments that they've made? Where's
Yeah.
the money going?
Cookie jar.
Would you
Yeah, it goes in the general fund. It's pretty straightforward. The money, there's no secret accounts or hidden accounts. It goes in general fund. And it might go in general fund and set aside into capital, but it's still all the money that you guys see regularly.
So the money has been there. The prosecutor's request being denied,
Well, we want to stick to this project. If you got questions about this project, we can talk about the prosecutor at a different time.
okay, I will. I'll bring
Okay.
it up during commissioner comments.
That's fine.
On this project, taking money out of reserves, I question the wisdom of that. We get a great interest rate on loans. Other entities in the county, the schools, as I've been told, if they can, I don't know how it happened, but if they can get the lower interest rate that the county has generated by having a good reserve, that helps out other entities, so we gotta be careful where we take reserves out of. We don't wanna lower that too much. Does JDOT's schedule allow for this? Is this something you have programmed previously?
The project?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so does your current schedule, you've got projects underway and others scheduled throughout the entire county. Is this going to impact your ability to complete those other projects? How much impact is it gonna have?
It wouldn't impact our projects, because JC not funding it.
We're not doing that work.
We're not doing the work either, a contractor is.
So your personnel and your materials and your equipment would not be used on this?
Yeah, we can't do force account. They don't allow it. Force account is when JC crews do the work with a federal grant. We can't do that. It has to
So
be
what
without.
entity would actually be doing the actual
The low
construction?
bidder is Mead Brothers.
And so Mead Brothers would do all of the scope of work?
I mean, they have subcontractors, but yeah,
Okay.
they're the prime contractor.
All right. Okay, the letter that came to us was from the Enterprise Group. I've got a question, was it 2012? Pardon me?
When they purchased the property?
No, was it 2012 when the staff of the Enterprise Group embezzled, I guess is the word, embezzled money from the Enterprise Group, were caught doing it. So my question is, have the staff that embezzled it ever been forced to return all of the money?
That was in 2003 and 4.
3 and 4?
It's an embezzlement. I came into that board on the tail end of it.
Okay, again, we're straying way off topic. We need to stay on the focus of this project. So if you have any questions or comments to that, please speak to that.
No, that's all I have.
All right. Commissioner Snell, did you?
I'd like us to think about too, is being maybe some creative financing here. Would they need, would Blackman, LVFA need the money up front? Could it be paid over a certain amount of years to lessen the impact?
So it's not them that needs it, it's JCDOT. So as if the board chooses to award to the low bidder, Mead Brothers, at committee, or at full board, then we'll move forward with the contract, and as construction progresses, we have bi-weekly payments that we have to make. So it's whatever amount of construction they do, we pay, and then we would submit for reimbursement from everybody.
Another thing we could do maybe is to negotiate with the, Blackman LDSA for a portion of that tax capture to come back.
That was my question, so glad you moved to that.
They could do that. They have, it looks like they give $100,000 to the county for distribution right now.
Yeah, I think we discussed that
Hear
at
my
our
point?
meeting, but I don't remember.
Possibly some of the captured funds coming back to the county through time.
And I haven't talked to Pete about any of this.
We talked about that when we met at JC, didn't we? But I can't remember his answer.
You know, I think it's imperative that this, that we seriously consider this project because, Jackson seen a ton of development. It's big with some good paying jobs. But I really want to look into that. First of all, the legality, it sounds like it's legal and that could happen. And secondly, if Blackman would be willing to do that. Because that would make the county taxpayers whole within about 10 years.
So the question is if Blackman can give back some tax capture?
Yes,
We can, look into that.
through time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over a period.
Well, they can.
I'm sure Pete will be at the meeting.
They don't, just
Yeah.
like any levy that we do, we can decide not to levy the whole amount. They don't have to capture the whole amount. As we know, the library always captures that, they always opt out.
So if we can explore that by, the next meetings where we're moving forward, I would appreciate that greatly.
So have those answers by committee, this will go to committee?
Yeah, I know that's pushing time, but
I think I'd be done by September 2nd or else, right? Yeah, we have to do it this month. And I think Pete and Edie, EG can answer the question.
okay.
I think it would be wise to maybe, we have unplanned revenue that's come in from the SRI. Yet it's general fund money. Maybe we could dedicate that to this project contingent upon being repaid part of it with the captured money, tax money. We'll do a two-way deal.
I know we'll need to talk to Blackman, obviously, about that, and my plan was to talk to Pete anyway, but I don't want to stop on administration toes, and, if we want to do it together, I'm open to that, whatever we want to do. Be happy to be a part of that.
Is the bonds paid off for the SRI completely? How much do we need to do debt retirement on that?
We don't. The settlement, was that they would pay us what they owed us, and then they would pay the bonds going forward.
Okay.
They have a commitment with that with their new, association. We still, have Liberty and Hanover Township who are in the settlement are making payments to the county.
Well, I just don't know how to sell it short on that debt retirement.
Okay. Commissioner Berry had another question?
This is going to be coming up at committee.
Yes.
I guess at that point, I would like a recommendation on what's the source of this money? Where's this coming from? And what's the proposal on where the money is coming from? Ideas tossed out, I'd like to see that.
So you'd like to see that come from the recommendation from J.C. Dot? You would like to see that on the...
From J.C. Dot or from the administration? J.C. Dot is asking us and the administration find $1 million for us. So I want to know where's that million coming from?
Okay.
To be fair, Blackman and, the Economic Development Group are the ones asking. We're submitting for you.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you for that
But I know
correction.
everything.
You are correct.
All right, so a lot of research is going to have to happen here in less than a week, but I think we can get it done, and we'll talk further on Monday during committee. Everyone good?
All clear?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll see you Monday. All right. That takes us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there any public comment? Mr. Bormuth?
Peter Bourne with 142 West Pearl Street. With regard to drawing jobs and technology and new companies to Jackson County, in 1997, the University of Michigan issued a directive to its researchers and professors encouraging them to spin off companies from their research, to commercialize, in other words, their research. And there have been a score of successful companies that have been created through that process. Jackson County has not got a single one of them. So what I'd like to know is why there hasn't been more outreach to, high-tech jobs that are being created 30 miles from here, when we have cheaper property taxes, we have cheaper property, we have access to the same educated workforce that's sitting 30 miles away, and we haven't got a single company out of that process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more public comment? Last chance for public comment. Public comment is closed. Takes us to item 11A, in accordance with MCL 15.26A, collective bargaining agreement negotiations. We will be going into closed sessions. Should someone make a motion to do so? Support. Moved by Duckham, supported by Williams. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, passes unanimously. We will, where are we heading? Six. Head to 6.
Where are we going for this?
6.
6.
Duly noted.
Yo, birds like you.
Yeah, who needs enemies, huh?
Right.
But if I was in the industry, I'd do that.
Darius, let's see. You had a chance to take a tour of the jail.
Yeah, a while ago.
Just, talking to, a gal last night.
I'm disappointed he's laughing at that.
Laughing with you, not at you.
Oh, yeah, can you talk?
I think you were chuckling a little.
Sure, I mean, I can do it again if it would have. Well, I think she's just looking to kind of check. I mean, you voted for the thing. You're not here. So, other than, it was unanimous, with respect to all of us who were here. I think you're in favor of it, supportive of it, okay, all right. I'll just kind of let her know you're satisfied that we need to do the work. Oh, yeah, very. Okay, that's, like I said, just kind of checking a box there with, to make sure everybody's on board, you know? Sure. Okay, perfect. It also kind of pick your brain on that last discussion. That's familiar. GF, and we talked all morning about how troubled our GF is. Yeah. And we're about to talk about a labor agreement that's gonna cost us probably more than we had budgeted for.
We're grappling with this question of economic development, where we can't even find
Well.
but we know they will come.
We'll get to that one. Taxes. Well, that's, I'm trying to build some pressure to have someone else figure out how to come up with money instead of coming to us, it's a bad wallet for them.
Thank you for calling Rockies, this is Karina, how can I help you?
Hey, how's it going? I got a call earlier, I think it was from Grandma actually, to confirm my appointment for tomorrow. So,
Here, let me take a look, what was your name?
Adam, the second one.
Oh, yeah, Adam, so is this supposed to be at 9 o'clock, or was that at 8:30?
Yep, I was the second one, I'm 9 o'clock, because I'm pretty sure there's an Adam right before me too. Yeah, yep.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I got you first, thanks.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Hello. Hey, I'm trying to figure out, I think the YouTube stuff, maybe we need to make the, you have YouTube up?
No.
I'd like to need.
Link. Hours ago.
That's good. Good one.
Yep, I'll be here.
All right.
Sorry about going there. See ya.
Whoop, stepped on Rodney's hat.
In trouble now. Oh.
Everybody in charge of bringing their own nameplate? Everybody was in charge of bringing their
Corey,
own
what time's that gonna be?
nameplate?
11:30, I thought we said.
Okay.
There's-
I just didn't look at my
not here.
thought.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm good.
probably
If
should
you-
contact him,
Well, I
huh?
thought you were
Because he
doing
might have
it.
forgot.
I thought you were resuming.
We might contact him, because he might have forgot.
How would you Zoom? There's a camera.
I gotta go get William's car taken care of. I gotta
We were gonna set up for Zoom.
sign the papers and everything. Pay for it.
Actually, I think it is Zoom.
I thought you had.
I haven't moved my
down
car
on the
to
computer.
the yet.
No, I mean, I know Dave, he just gave me a dealer's plate. I've had that car not even paid for it for 3 weeks.
It's already committed.
I was waiting to see if it blew up. Oh, sorry.
It's already committed several driving violations.
You know what that little kid, you know what he did yesterday? I had to take him to get a sports physical, and they required masks to get in there, so I said, run back into my truck and get masks out of the council. So I'm going to here today, and I gotta get the plate, because I gotta go turn it in, and the frickin' keys are gone from my center console. I walk into his room, he had taken the keys back, he was gonna go for another joyride today, I tell you what. Oh, boy, yeah. Got my hands full.
Yeah, you're between a rock and a hard place. You got mama watching.
I said, I couldn't believe he did that. I said, why would you do that? You know she's got cameras.
You know they're vindictive.
Just told,
Yeah.
Jeff that you and I were gonna be pariahs again at Likeways today.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it too.
Everybody back?
Earl? Sir. Ray? What happened last night was very similar to what Putin does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Except they didn't poison him.
I'm looking for a motion to come back into open session. Moved by Walls, supported by Duckham. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes unanimously. I'd be looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move to ratify the tentative agreement reached with the Jackson County Employees Chapter of Local 2098, affiliated with Michigan Council Number 25, AFSCME, for a new collective bargaining agreement for the period of August 9, 2022 through December 31, 2024, and authorize the board chair to sign the successor collective bargaining agreements on approval as to form by the county's legal counsel.
Supported by Duckham. We'll do a roll call vote.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Walls,
Yes.
Commissioner Duckham,
Yes.
Commissioner Pulaski,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Snell,
Yes.
Chairman Kennedy.
Yes. And Commissioner Bear.
Do I get to vote?
Oh, Commissioner Bear, I apologize.
Wonderful. Takes us to commissioner comments. Are there, Commissioner Snell?
Yeah, what happened this weekend, should concern us all.
Would you explain what happened?
What happened?
I've been too busy to listen to the news.
Yeah, wow. The FBI and force went into Mar-a-Lago looking for, with search warrants, for God knows what. Safes were opened without separate search warrants, which are usually required. We talk about the decline of democracy, and that is a big one. The other concern is the army of IRS agents that have just been authorized by our federal government to harass people for more money. When our president gleefully talks about we could get up to $1 trillion more by squeezing, well, where are they going to squeeze? It's not me, it's not you, it's not Bill Gates. It's going to be those who make $50,000 under. Those are the people that will be audited. They're going to be looking at their earned income credit, whether they're actually eligible or not. And these are numbers that are being used right now, those percentages of people who are getting audited. But, you know, as a board, I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but I just wanted to say that this bothers me tremendously, especially when we have evidence of other political leaders having, and I won't be criminal because nobody's been arrested or convicted yet, but some shady dealings going on for years. That's all I've got to say about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Snell. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Duckham.
I'd like to dovetail on Commissioner Snell's comment. I'm set to high school economics, and I don't know how, this is called a deficit inflation reduction plan. We're gonna print more money to pay down our debt, so we don't have inflation. Wait, we're gonna print more money. Banana Republic.
Thank you. Commissioner Bear.
At our July 18, 2022 Public Safety and Transportation Committee meeting, agenda item for our Assistant Drain Commissioner request. You'll go into your computers, bring up that meeting, bring up that agenda item. There's a box shows up. So there was a motion made, and there was a vote taken. The motion to forward the Drain Commissioner's request to the administrator failed. So there was no official movement, there was no official recommendation to have the administration negotiate something or impose something on a Drain Commissioner. I encourage every one of you, don't believe a word I just said. Go look it up. Open up those meetings.
Commissioner Bear, if my memory is correct, it didn't fail because Commissioner Shotwell became the tie-breaking vote.
That's not in the minutes. If you go into those minutes, I don't believe Shotwell was there at the time. Go into those minutes, and the box comes up, you scroll down to the end of that agenda item, it says motion failed. Am I correct?
Tony, yes, and that's an error on my part. That's an error on my part.
What's the correction? What should have been corrected?
Shotwell was the tie-breaking vote, and he said that vocally in the meeting, which he has the right to do anytime there's a tie. He's done it on other items too.
He did say it, because I heard him.
I'm going based on what's in the
Yep, and she's acknowledged it, it's a clerical error.
And I will personally review that video and, make sure it is corrected today.
Well, shame on you for not coming with lack of 20 years' experience.
Okay, so I'm gonna go on this a little bit further.
Okay.
Denying the prosecutor the staff he needs is not hurting the prosecutor. It's hurting the public. It's hurting the victims in this county. So by not providing our prosecutor with what he says is the proper staffing to do his job well, the accused, the Indigent Defense Commission, keeps getting more and more staff, more and more money, so the accused are very well represented. The prosecutor represents the citizens, represents particularly the victims. So when you withhold money from the prosecutor, you are withholding money from the victims. That doesn't sit well with me. The victims deserve better. The victims deserve this board to reconsider that.
What don't sit well with me is the shoddy job Jerry's doing.
Pardon me?
What doesn't sit well with me is the shoddy job Jerry Jazinka is doing in his department. I'll talk to you after the meeting about that.
We can all have our opinions on how well he's doing his job, but when he comes here and says, I need more people, the purpose of is to protect the citizens, then I think we need to give it to him.
Well, part of our job as commissioners is to weigh the requests from every department, including his.
Okay.
And to decide whether or not that is in fact the case. If we were to just take the word of every department head that they need more staff and just approve it.
Pretty much done?
Well, no.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in order, this
So-
is just Commissioner Conklin.
Sheriff, you can bring those minutes up again, or if you still have them.
Which minutes are you referring to?
The July 18 Public Safety and Transportation Committee. That's where you say the minutes, as they are at the moment, are not correct. That Commissioner was passed when Shotwell joined the vote?
Correct.
Is that correct? That's
What's your question?
He's asking about the meeting where Shotwell became the tiebreaker.
Commissioner? Okay, well, if we're going through this new industrial park, that's more work for the drain commissioner. Every department needs to be reasonably staffed, and I know some people have told me one of their complaints is that when they have gone up to the 14th floor, is drain commissioner on the 14th floor? I forget. Anyway, when people have gone up to the floor where the drain commissioner's offices are, the office has been locked. There's only a staff of 2. And if the drain commissioner is out doing work, and the other staff person has to go work with, go look up deeds, there's about at least three other agencies within this building that the staff have to go to look up records. The staff can't go downstairs to look up deeds if they're out on Elm Road. They need to stay. I still, not being able to walk into the drain commissioner's office because the door's locked is no big deal to me. That happens in many departments. Finance locks their door when they have to go someplace in the building. When there's just one lady staff member in the office, yeah, it's reasonable to me. Lock the darn door. Many departments do that. So to use that as justification to, I'll use the word punish the drain commissioner, that's just not appropriate in my book. The amount of staff needed, if we're gonna add more projects like this Blackman project, drain commissioner's gonna need more people. I don't see how he can get by with the staff level he's at. And I missed my point. When people have gone to the drain commissioner's office and the door's been locked. Well, yesterday, I came into the building. I wanted to go to the 6th floor. Push the button. No, I can't go. So the regular citizen walking in, wanting to go to the 6th floor, the administration, they can't get there. So every citizen in this county is not allowed to go to the 6th floor. I was able to get there because I took my badge and I swiped it, and I could get to the 6th floor. The 6th floor, to me, is more important than the drain commissioner's floor. We complain that the drain commissioner's office is locked, but yet the administrator's office is locked because I can't push a button and get to the 6th floor. So if we're going to think poorly of the drain commissioner because people can't get to his floor, then what do we think about people that can't get to the 6th floor? Citizens that, for whatever reason, want to go there. So I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and somebody told me, well, 90% of the people that come into the building go to other departments. So what? Take care of the 10%. If 10% of the citizens that come in the building want to go to the 6th floor, we'd better let them get there. Or we punish the 6th floor like we punish the commissioner's floor because they're not accessible. So to reject one department's proposal because they're not accessible, that's just a contradiction.
Thank you.
So I'm going to bring these two up over and over again. Every time we spend money that's not budgeted, I'm going to bring the commissioner and the prosecutor up again. We need to treat those people better. They're elected officials. And this group of elected officials shouldn't be shitting on them.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comment? Seeing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Wall, supported by Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes unanimously. Thank you, we're adjourned.
Yep, you're very welcome. Yep, it's that piece of paper I gave you.
Gosh dang it, I made the first.
Hey, sir.
At least it wasn't at a regular meeting.
See you guys.
I just looked at it. It's at least up, so.
Thank you, I appreciate it.